Today we're going to talk about how copyright and fair use apply to digital online story times. So first, what is copyright? Copyright was established by the Constitution and is a form of intellectual property law, which protects the authors of original works. The protection begins from the moment that the work is fixed and tangible, which includes a digital format. So it can be print or digital items. A work doesn't have to be registered with the U.S. Copyright Office in order to be protected. Copyright law actually covers both published and unpublished works. It does have a lifetime, which is the author's life plus 70 more years. After this point, the work enters into the public domain. It's important to know that there are exceptions to the rights of copyright owners. The most well-known is fair use. Fair use doctrine was added to the Copyright Act of 1976. And this doctrine recognizes that at certain times, the use of copyrighted materials promotes the progress of science and the arts, including education. Deciding what constitutes fair use isn't always straightforward, though. The law is flexible so that it can be adapted to many situations. You'll want to apply the 4 factors of fair use in order to determine if your use of a copyrighted work is permitted. The 4 factors of fair use include the purpose of the use. So what is your purpose in using this copyrighted work? Is it commercial or to make money? Is it nonprofit or is it educational? Nonprofit and educational uses are more likely to be considered fair than commercial uses. What is the nature of the work? Is it fiction or factual? Unpublished or published? Unpublished works are generally more protected than published works because they haven't had a chance to enter the market yet. And fiction is also usually more protected than factual works. For amount of work, consider if you're using the whole or part of the work. Using a small portion is more likely to be considered fair than using the whole work. And then lastly, consider the effect of your use on the market. Are you harming sales through your use? If you are, it's not likely to be considered fair. So, let's apply the 4 factors to online recorded story times. So for the purpose of the use, generally what you're doing is you're looking to use it for an educational purpose, and it's usually nonprofit. You're not making any money from the use. So this would pass this aspect of fair use. For the nature of the copyrighted work, it in part depends if you're using a fiction or nonfiction title, but you usually will be using a published book regardless. So this gets kind of a so-so rating. For the amount of work used, usually we're reading the entire story and not just a portion of it. So we would fail this part of the fair use checklist. And then for the effect on the use on the potential market, if you or your library has purchased the copy that's being used, you'll pass this aspect because the item has been purchased. So you can see that online recorded story times kind of are a gray area. Some people will argue that it's fair use because it's an educational purpose. And some people will think that it's not fair use. It's hard to determine, but there are some things that you can do to make sure that your use is fair. And you should, for example, check the publisher's website, especially now during the COVID-19 pandemic. Publishers have opened up their copyright permissions to allow educators and librarians to record story times. They usually suggest and ask that you keep the videos unlisted on YouTube so someone can't find them by searching. They'll only be able to find the video if the link has been shared with them, or locked down behind some kind of barrier like a Google Classroom or an e-class. Typically, the publishers will ask that you state that you're reading this book with permission from the publisher at the start of the video. This also will help if you want to share a video that's published. You'll know which ones have been given permission by the publisher. Right now, they're asking that you delete or disable the video by December 31st, but this date could be extended, so it's important to check back with the publishers. Sometimes they'll request that you fill out a permission form or send them an email to let them know that you're using the book for a story time. And they ask that you share story times that are created with permission. So if you find a story time online that you want to share with your students, do a little searching around, listen for that permission at the beginning of the video to make sure you're sharing ones that were created with permission. Now, a lot of publishers are permitting online video story times so long as they meet some criteria. So if you simply Google the name of the publisher of the book that you're interested in and, read aloud permissions or that publisher and even COVID-19, you'll probably come up with a link to their permissions or a statement of their permissions and how they'd like you to use the book. So I did this for a few publishers, and here we have links to Scholastic, Penguin Random House, Simon & Schuster, Candlewick Press, and Lee & Low for the first page. So all of these publishers are allowing online story times. They mostly follow the guidelines that I just listed, including making sure your video is unlisted on YouTube or held behind some kind of permission block like a Google Classroom. And they ask generally that you state at the beginning of the video that this is recorded with permission from the publisher. But check out their personal websites just to verify that you're following all of their permissions. And then here are some more. Macmillan, Little Brown and Company, Books for Young Readers, HarperCollins, Learner Books, and Barefoot Books. And Barefoot Books restrictions are a little lighter. They just ask that you credit the author, illustrator, and Barefoot Books as the publisher in your video and provide a link to the website. So you could put that in the details of the video or the description of the video. And this permission, like the others, extends through December 31st. So again, if your publisher isn't listed here, just search it on Google and see if they have some statement on being able to do story times, especially right now, and follow the guidelines that they list for you. So this concludes today's video. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, please contact the library.